I never imagined betrayal could come dressed in silk sheets and soft laughter. My name is Ryan Malik, and until a few months ago, I thought I had life all figured out. I'm 27, a software developer based in Karachi, and I live a fairly quiet life. I've always been a logical person, reliable, methodical, the kind of man people come to when they need things done right. I wasn't rich, but I had a decent apartment, a respectable job at a tech firm, and a girlfriend I thought I would marry. Her name was Alina. Alina was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, artistic, full of charm and mystery. She had this laugh that could stop a room, eyes that always seemed to hide a secret, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world who mattered. We met through mutual friends at a wedding, and from the moment she looked at me across the Mendy-lit courtyard, I was hooked. My world revolved around her. My mornings began with her voice, and my nights ended with long calls filled with dreams of our future. I'd pick her up from her art classes, bring her coffee just the way she liked, extra milk, no sugar, and she'd reward me with a kiss and a dimpled smile that melted every doubt I ever had. People around me would say, "You're lucky, Ryan. She's too beautiful for you." And I'd laugh, thinking they were just being playful. But I was proud. Proud to be hers. Proud to be the man who stood beside her. I wasn't flashy or charming, but I was consistent, honest, and deeply loyal. I gave her all of me without hesitation. Looking back, maybe that was my first mistake, giving so much without ever thinking she might not value it. My days were usually routine. Wake up at 7 a.m., hit the gym for an hour, get ready for work, and spend 9 hours debugging code and solving client issues. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. Alina would usually send me photos of her paintings or little voice notes saying she missed me. She made my boring life feel colorful. Or at least that's what I believed. Evenings were our time. We'd meet at her favorite chai dhaba, sit for hours talking about everything and nothing. She'd talk about wanting to open her own art gallery someday, and I'd promise to support her no matter what. She'd often tell me she felt like the world didn't understand her, but that I did, and that meant everything to her. I felt chosen. But then, strange things started happening, small, almost unnoticeable things. She stopped answering my calls on the first ring. She'd say she was busy painting but wouldn't show me the new work. Her voice notes became shorter, sometimes robotic. I'd joke about it. "You still love me, right?" And she'd reply with a forced laugh and a quick "of course." One evening, she told me she wouldn't be able to meet because she had a women's art collective gathering. I didn't think much of it. She had always been passionate about female empowerment and cultural art projects. I even encouraged her. But something about that night felt different. She wasn't active on social media, and when I texted her around 10 p.m., there was no reply. That never happened. The next morning, she sent a simple message. "Sorry, I fell asleep." It was a long night. No explanation, no photo, nothing. Just those 10 words. I brushed it off. I loved her too much to doubt her. But doubt has a way of creeping in like smoke. It starts small, but before you know it, you're choking on it. A few days later, I noticed she had changed her phone password. We used to share everything. Our phones were never private. When I asked about it, she snapped, "Don't you trust me?" I nodded, ashamed for even asking. But trust isn't about blind belief. It's about patterns. And the patterns were changing. One night, while we were watching a movie at her place, she got a call. She looked at the screen and instantly muted it. I caught a glimpse of the name. Adil. She quickly turned her phone face down. "Who's Adil?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She paused, then said, "Just a friend from art school. He's helping me with a gallery concept." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her voice, tight, defensive, told me there was more to the story. Still, I said nothing. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, insecure boyfriend. I told myself that love means giving space. But I didn't know then that sometimes space is just the room someone needs to hide a secret. That weekend, we had a small get-together with friends. Alina was quieter than usual, glued to her phone more than usual. When I asked if something was wrong, she smiled and said she had a headache. But when I got up to get her a glass of water, I caught her texting. I wasn't trying to snoop, but as she set her phone down for a second, the screen lit up. It was a WhatsApp message from someone saved as A. It read, "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. My hands turned cold. I sat back down, pretending I hadn't seen anything. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed still. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but didn't care. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that message in my mind. Last night was perfect. What night? When? Was it the same night she said she was with the art collective? The puzzle pieces began fitting together, one by one, and the image they formed was something I wasn't ready to see. But something inside me clicked. I knew I had to find the truth. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. My world, the one I had so carefully built with her, was about to explode. And I was going to make sure that when it did, she would never forget what came next. The morning after I saw that message, everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The sun still rose over Karachi's skyline. The city still buzzed with its chaotic heartbeat, but inside me, something had cracked. And once a crack forms, even in silence, everything starts to fall apart. I didn't confront Alina immediately. No. I needed clarity before war. I spent the next few days watching, carefully, silently. I started noticing details I had once ignored. The way her phone never left her hand, how her replies to my messages grew more delayed, how her "I love you" as felt like empty script lines from a fading drama. It was Thursday when I decided to test something. I told her I had to work late, an excuse that always disappointed her. But this time she seemed relieved. She replied with a quick, "No worries, I'll use the time to paint." No emoji, no fuss, just a convenient acceptance. I parked my car 2 streets away from her apartment around 8:30 p.m. I had no plan, just a storm of emotions guiding me. I felt ridiculous, hiding in the shadows like some jealous fool. But this wasn't jealousy, it was clarity wrapped in pain. I had to see it with my own eyes. At exactly 9:12 p.m., a silver Honda Civic pulled up to her gate. Out stepped a man, tall, lean, with a sculpted beard and an expensive-looking jacket. He walked with the confidence of someone who had been there before. And the way Alina opened the door for him, with a smile that was too intimate, too effortless, it confirmed everything I feared. They didn't see me. They disappeared inside. I sat in my car, motionless, for almost an hour. The humiliation burned, but strangely, I wasn't crying. The tears weren't coming. I felt numb, like a man standing in a burning house yet unable to move. Around 10:45 p.m., I drove home. I didn't call her, didn't text. I needed a plan, not a confrontation. I had given her my loyalty, my love, and my soul. And she had spat on it. But revenge isn't about shouting. It's about silence, executed with precision. Over the next few days, I started collecting evidence. Screenshots. Phone call records. I even found her private Instagram account, a separate one I never knew existed. It was filled with poetic captions and photos with that same man, Adil, her creative partner. Their so-called gallery project was a masquerade, a romantic getaway disguised as ambition. She had lied to me for weeks, maybe months. And the worst part? She never even looked guilty. I needed to confront her, but not as a victim. I needed to be strategic. If she wanted drama, I would give her a performance she wouldn't forget. So, I invited her to dinner the following weekend. A fancy rooftop restaurant, the one she had always wanted to try, but I'd told her was too expensive. She seemed surprised but delighted. She wore her best black dress, the one I'd once gifted her. "You're full of surprises lately," she smiled. If only she knew. I kept the conversation light. We laughed, ate, reminisced. She seemed to think things were normal. Maybe she believed I had no idea. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. But then I leaned in and said, "So, how's the gallery project with Adil?" Her fork paused midway to her lips. There it was, the flicker of fear. "Oh, it's good," she said quickly. "Why?" I was just curious, I said. You seem close. Professionally, of course. She forced a laugh, clearly unsure whether this was sarcasm or suspicion. It's nothing like that. You're overthinking. Am I? I smiled, sipping my drink. Because I saw him at your place last Thursday night. Must have been a very intense painting session. She froze. The silence between us was loud. What were you doing there? She asked, her voice suddenly cold. I was doing what any faithful, loyal man does when he suspects he's being made a fool of, looking for the truth. She set her cutlery down. Her eyes narrowed. You had no right. I had every right, I snapped. You gave me none of the truth, so I found it myself. There was no apology, no explanation, just defensiveness. You were smothering me, Ryan, she hissed. Always around, always trying to fix me. I needed space. A deal gave me that. I stared at her. I wasn't trying to fix you. I was trying to build a life with you. Then you should have known better, she replied coldly. People like us don't work. People like us. That sentence echoed in my mind long after dinner ended. I paid the bill, stood up, and left her there alone. But the story wasn't over. I wasn't going to just walk away. Not without making sure she understood what it meant to lose someone who gave everything. Because what she didn't know was that I had already prepared my next move. And this time, it wasn't about love. It was about power. After that night, I didn't hear from Alina for 2 days. No calls. No texts. It was like she vanished. But the silence didn't bother me. It empowered me. You see, heartbreak has a strange way of awakening a deeper version of yourself. I wasn't the same man who had sent her good morning messages and built Spotify playlists to match her moods. That man died the night I saw her let someone else into her world like I was never there. Now, I wasn't planning dates. I was planning a reckoning. I started with social media. I unfollowed her from everywhere, deleted our photos, archived our memories. But I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings. This was about reclaiming control. Next, I reached out to a friend of mine, Zane, who ran a popular YouTube channel on modern relationships and betrayal stories. He had always said, your pain could be someone else's survival guide. I pitched him an idea. I would anonymously tell my story, the whole truth, on his platform. No names, no faces, but every gut-wrenching detail. He was intrigued. If you're ready to bleed in front of the world, let's do it. It took me 2 days to record it. I spoke straight from the heart. No script. Just raw honesty. I talked about how love blinded me, how I ignored the signs, how I watched her turn into a stranger while I kept showing up with loyalty in my hands. And then, how I chose to rise instead of retaliate with toxicity. The video was uploaded under the title, I loved her until she showed me who she really was. Within 24 hours, it hit over 100,000 views. The comments were flooding in. Bro, this hit deep. I went through the same thing. Thank you for putting into words what so many of us feel. You didn't lose her, you escaped her. The validation was unexpected, but it didn't fill the void. It simply made it clear I wasn't alone. Betrayal was universal. Healing, however, was personal. And then, Alina messaged me. Alina, so you're playing the victim online now? Pathetic. I stared at the message for a while, then typed back. Me. Truth doesn't need to wear a mask. Unlike you. She read it but didn't reply. 2 days later, a mutual friend, Zara, reached out to warn me. Alina's furious. She's been telling everyone you're obsessed and toxic. Typical. Flip the narrative. The cheater becomes the victim and the betrayed becomes the villain. But I was prepared. I had a backup plan. I still had the screenshots. The late-night messages from a deal. The double dates disguised as art sessions. The secret Instagram account. I didn't want to go public with it, but if she kept pushing, I was ready. But more than anything, I wanted to move on. To evolve. So, I threw myself into my own projects. I finished my short film script that had been gathering dust for months. I reconnected with old friends I had distanced myself from while pouring everything into that relationship. I even started therapy. Every session peeled back layers I didn't know I had. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Manur, helped me process the betrayal, not as a defeat, but as a release. "You weren't abandoned," she once said. "You were redirected." Those words became my compass. Meanwhile, the video on Zayn's channel had exploded. It crossed 500,000 views. I had unknowingly become the voice of a silent demographic, men who were emotionally wounded but never allowed to grieve out loud. Zayn invited me back for follow-up. This time, he wanted me to share how I was rebuilding. The response was even stronger. People wanted more. They wanted my thoughts on healing, loyalty, red flags. What started as therapy became influence. And that's when I got the email. A startup brand that focused on mental health awareness for men reached out. They wanted me to collaborate on a short film based on my story. Funded, professionally shot, distributed widely. I was speechless. From heartbreak to opportunity. From betrayal to platform. But just as I started to feel the pieces of my life realigning, Alina showed up at my apartment. Uninvited. It was a Saturday evening. I was editing footage when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there she was, wearing the same perfume that used to make me dizzy with love. "Can we talk?" she asked, eyes softer than I remembered. My silence made her nervous. She stepped inside without waiting for a yes. "I've been thinking about everything," she said, walking into the living room like it still belonged to her. "I know I hurt you, but you hurt me too. Going public like that? That was cruel." I stood with arms crossed. "So was cheating." She winced. "I didn't plan to fall for a deal. It just happened. But he doesn't even talk to me now. He says I have too much baggage." I almost laughed. Karma had a sharp sense of timing. "I made a mistake, Ryan. A big one. But I miss you." She was trying. I could see the desperation behind the mascara. But something had shifted in me. Her words no longer stirred longing. They stirred clarity. "You miss the version of me who kept giving while you kept taking," I said. "But that version is gone." She sat down, defeated. "Is there really no chance?" I shook my head. There's no point rewriting a chapter that already ended in flames. Alina left that night. Quietly. Without a fight. And as the door closed behind her, I knew it wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the end of who I used to be. The weeks passed quickly after that night. Something inside me had fundamentally changed, not just because Alina walked out for the last time, but because I didn't feel broken by it anymore. I had stepped out of her orbit, and suddenly I could breathe. But as life would have it, just when you think the storm is over, the real quake begins. I was scheduled to speak at a university panel on emotional well-being and storytelling. It was part of a mental health awareness campaign. Zayn had set it up, believing I could inspire students struggling with heartbreak, betrayal, and identity loss. The night before the event, I received a DM. A deal. The man she cheated with. His message was short, but it hit like a punch to the chest. A deal. "You're not the only one she betrayed." I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before replying. "Me? What are you trying to say?" "A deal. Meet me. Cafe Blackbird. 7 p.m. Don't worry, no drama. Just truth." I didn't trust him, but something told me to go. The next evening, I walked into the cafe with my guard up. He was already there, sitting at the corner table, sipping a cold brew like this was any normal day. "Ryan," he greeted, looking older than I remembered. "Thanks for coming." "Make it quick," I said, sitting across from him. He nodded, folding his hands like someone about to deliver bad news. "I just wanted to say you were right. About her." I said nothing. Let him talk. "She told me all kinds of things about you," he continued. "Said you were controlling, insecure, emotionally manipulative." I believed her. At first. But then, I saw the pattern. He pulled out his phone and slid it toward me. Screenshots. Messages. Not just between him and Alina, but between her and another man. She had been playing them both. Even while she was with Adil, she was texting someone named Rayhan. And just like that, Adil wasn't the villain anymore. He was another pawn. She does this, he said quietly. She takes good men and breaks them to feel powerful. I pushed the phone back to him. Why are you telling me this?
He sighed.
Because you didn't deserve what happened. And because I want out of this cycle too. She moved on from me already. Said I was too sensitive. Sound familiar? I almost laughed. Exactly the same line. Adil looked up, the same bitterness in his eyes I once saw in the mirror. I guess we were both lessons in someone else's story. No, I corrected him. We were lessons in our own. We shook hands and parted ways. I walked out of that cafe with no anger, no fire, just peace. That night, I rewrote the final scene of my short film. Originally, the protagonist confronts the girl, exposes her lies, and storms out in a blaze of justice. But now, that ending felt childish. The new ending was different. He walks away smiling, not because he won, but because he healed. The next day, I stood on stage at the university auditorium. The crowd was larger than I expected. Cameras, students, even professors. I took a deep breath and began. I used to think closure came from confrontation, I said. From making the other person understand the pain they caused. But I've learned something more powerful than closure. It's called acceptance. I told them my story. Not with bitterness, not with drama. Just truth. I spoke about self-respect, about ignoring red flags, about how love without honesty is a trap disguised as destiny. And I ended with a sentence that had taken me months to understand. Sometimes, the person who breaks you is the one who saves you from yourself. A standing ovation. Afterward, students approached me with teary eyes and shaky voices, thanking me for articulating what they couldn't say aloud. One girl told me, I was about to go back to the guy who cheated on me. But now, I think I'm finally ready to let go. That one sentence made every ounce of pain worth it. Later that evening, I received a voice note from Alina. Ryan, I saw your talk. I don't even know what to say. You're not the man I remember. You're evolved. I'm happy for you. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate you when I had the chance. But maybe you were never meant to stay small for someone like me. Goodbye. It wasn't closure. It was confirmation. Confirmation that I had grown. That I had become the kind of man who didn't need revenge or validation or her. Instead of replying, I deleted the voice note. That night, I lit a candle, not for mourning, but as a symbol of everything I had reclaimed. My voice, my peace, my purpose. From her betrayal, I had birthed something she could never touch, a self that no longer sought love in broken places. And in that quiet room, I whispered the one truth that had taken me so long to learn. Healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It's when you no longer need to be heard because you've finally started to listen to yourself. 2 years later, that's how long it took, not just to rebuild, but to transcend everything that had once broken me. And now, here I stood, under the soft glow of studio lights, surrounded by a small crew of artists, writers, and producers. My debut feature film was about to premiere at a major independent film festival in Lahore. It wasn't just any story. It was my story, fictionalized just enough to protect privacy, but raw enough to strike nerves. The title? Unspoken. A love letter to my former self. The reviews from early critics had been glowing. They called it hauntingly real, emotionally revelatory, and a masterpiece of inner transformation. But beyond the praise, beyond the buzz, it was the audience reactions that mattered most to me. Zayn, ever the loyal friend, was now my co-producer and manager. He looked over at me moments before the screening and said, Bro, this is just the beginning. After this, there's no going back. I smiled.
Good.
I never want to go back. The theater dimmed, the film began, and for the next 2 hours, the silence in the room was electric. I watched tears slide down cheeks. I heard the occasional gasp, the muted sniffles of people seeing themselves on that screen. By the time the credits rolled, a hush fell over the room like reverence. Then, an eruption of applause. Not for me, for the truth. Later that night, during the post-screening Q&A, someone in the audience, a young woman in her 20s, stood up with trembling hands. "Your film made me call my therapist. I haven't been in 3 months, but I'm going back because I don't want to keep loving people who don't see me." That moment, that voice, that decision, that's when I knew I'd done what I came here to do. But the universe wasn't finished with its poetry just yet. The very next morning, while having coffee in the hotel lobby, I spotted a familiar face walking in with 2 friends. Alina. Time had changed her. She looked good, still poised, still stylish, but there was something softer in her eyes. Something quieter. She saw me too. Our eyes met. She hesitated, then walked over slowly. "Ryan," she said, voice almost cautious. "Alina," I nodded. "I saw your film last night," she said. "I didn't know it was yours until your name came up at the end." I raised an eyebrow. "What did you think?" She let out a breath. "It hurt. In all the ways it was supposed to." Silence. She looked down at her hands, fidgeting. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I just wanted to say thank you for telling the truth, even when it hurt. You were always honest." I wasn't ready for it then. "I know," I said gently. "You were doing your own survival." She looked up. "And now?" "I'm thriving," I answered. She gave a sad smile. "You were always meant to." And just like that, no drama, no tears, no awkward requests, we parted. That was the last time I saw her. Months passed. The film was picked up by an international distributor. I began working on a book, a blend of memoir and life lessons titled The Betrayal Blueprint, Turning Heartbreak into Fuel. TEDx invitations followed. Speaking engagements. I was featured in a wellness documentary. But with every opportunity, I kept grounding myself in one truth. Success is not revenge. It's the echo of healing. And my success? It wasn't built on spite. It was born of clarity, of finally choosing myself in a world that constantly asked me to shrink for others. In my free time, I mentored young creatives, many of whom had been through toxic relationships or emotional manipulation. I wasn't just helping them tell stories. I was helping them reclaim their voices, the same way I had. One night, while journaling on my balcony under the stars, I wrote a note to my younger self. "You thought you needed her to feel worthy. You thought heartbreak would kill you. But look at you now. You are proof that losing what you thought was love can sometimes return you to who you were meant to be all along." That night, I closed the chapter not with bitterness, but with a full heart. I'd once been erased from someone's world, as if I never mattered. But in doing so, I was reborn in my own world, and this time, I was the author. The pain? It didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became my alchemy. And the boy who once sat on his apartment floor with shattered dreams and teary eyes? He became a man who turned silence into cinema, pain into poetry, and loss into legacy. If you're listening to this, watching this, reading this, whatever form my story found you in, I want you to understand something very clearly. Pain is not the end of your story. When Alina betrayed me, I thought my world had ended. I thought I would never recover, never trust, never love again. But I was wrong. Her betrayal wasn't a curse. It was a crack in the shell of a version of myself that was never meant to survive. It forced me to confront my insecurities, my patterns, my unhealed wounds. It forced me to grow, to rise. You might be sitting in your own version of that heartbreak right now, crying into your pillow, checking your phone for a message that won't come, asking yourself what you did wrong. Let me tell you, you didn't lose love. You lost illusion. The illusion that you had to settle. The illusion that being chosen by someone else defined your worth. It doesn't. Your worth is not a reflection of who stays. It's revealed by how you stay with yourself when everyone else walks away. Heartbreak doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to who you really are. And who you really are, that's someone powerful, someone resilient, someone who has already survived every hard thing you thought you couldn't. So don't try to rush past the pain. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it rip you open, Not to hurt you, but to make space for what's been trying to grow inside you all along. And one day, like me, you'll look back and thank the very person who broke you. Not because they were right, but because their betrayal was the spark that ignited your transformation. Alina shocked me with her betrayal. But what came next? That's what shocked her. Because I rose. Because I healed. Because I made a life so full, so free, so fiercely mine, that the past could only watch from the sidelines. And that's what I want for you, too. Not revenge. Not regret. Rebirth. Let their choices stay theirs. Let your healing be your revenge. And most importantly, never let someone else's inability to love you make you forget how extraordinary you are. Because you are. Even now. Especially now. This isn't the end. This is your becoming.